Hi everyone, my name is Laurent Kubaski. I'm the product manager for Files Connect, and today I'm going to show you a new way to connect your Salesforce org to Office 365 using Files Connect. This is using Microsoft Azure, and this is a new way to connect to Office 365 that we introduced in the Winter 17th uh, release. The old way of connecting to Office 365 still works, but if possible, you should migrate to this new way that I'm going to demonstrate right now. But first, let's make sure that Files Connect is enabled on your org. To do this, go to the setup tree, search for the Files Connect node, and make sure that Files Connect is enabled. Then you need to create a permission set. In this case, I simply called it Files Connect, and on this permission set, make sure that the Files Connect cloud, Files Connect cloud permission is enabled, and of course that this permission set is assigned to all the users, so we need to access their Office 365 documents. In this case, I am logged in as myself, Laurent Kubaski, so I have assigned myself the permission set. Okay, so first thing to do is to go to the auth providers section, and we are going to create a new auth provider. Provider type is OpenID Connect. Name, let's call this SharePoint via Azure. Okay. URL suffix is automatically generated. So consumer key and consumer secret. To get these values, that's where you switch to a Microsoft Azure. So you start by going to https://manage.windowsazure.com. And we want to go in the Active Directory section, which is at the bottom of the list. So go in the Active Directory section. There you should see your Office 365 tenant. So click on it. In my case, the tenant is called Entropysoft. Go to Applications. And click on Add at the bottom of the screen. So add an application my organization is developing, and the name will be, let's call this Files Connect Test 1. So we are going to create a web application. So hit next. Sign on URL. This value is not used. So you can use any fake value. So https / foo. Okay, and same thing for the second field. These two values are not used. Okay. Click on OK. You are now on the screen. Click on Configure. Scroll down, and here is your client ID. We also need a client secret. So in the keys section, select the 2 years option. We are going to create a 2-year key. Scroll down again. In the permissions to other applications section, you are going to delete this row, which is there by default. Windows Azure Active Directory, we don't need it, so let's remove it. And then click on Add Application. And in the list, choose Office 365 SharePoint Online. Click on OK. So Office 365 SharePoint Online. In the delegated permissions section, choose the permissions you want to grant to your users. So for this demo, I'm going to use read items in all site collections. Okay, and then hit save. Okay. After the application is saved, Azure generates a client secret. So we are going to take the consumer key and the client secret and paste them back in Salesforce. So client ID first, I copy it to the clipboard, I go back in Salesforce on my auth provider and I paste my consumer key, then the consumer secret, go back to Azure, that's this field, so I click there, back in Salesforce, and I paste the consumer secret. And then there are two more values that I need to provide: authorized endpoint URL and token endpoint URL. Refer to the Files Connect documentation to check the values to use. In my case, since my tenant is called Entropysoft, I'm going to use this value. So again, refer to the documentation. So I paste this value and token endpoint URL. This time it's always the same value no matter what your tenant name is. So it's https://login.microsoftonline.com/common/auth2/token. Okay, we are almost done. Let's hit save and Salesforce will generate a callback URL. So select this value, copy it to the clipboard, go back to Azure on your app, and in this section called reply URL, add the Salesforce generated value. And then hit save, and you are done with the Azure setup. So if you are familiar with the old way of setting up Files Connect, you will notice that this new way is way more easy. Okay, back in Salesforce, we have our auth provider. So next step is to go to the external data sources section and to create a new one. So I click on new external data source. So it's going to be SharePoint via Azure. Okay, type is Microsoft SharePoint Online. Site URL, I'm going to connect to this site, entropysoft.sharepoint.com/Capricorn. Let's not forget the https://. Okay, so when you use Azure, in case your users do not have read access to the root site collection, which is the case there, or not all the users have access to entropysoft/sharepoint.com. They only have read access to this specific subsite. So when it's the case, when people only have access to the subsite, make sure that this checkbox is selected. Identity type, I will let you read the documentation to understand the difference between per user and name principal, but for demo purpose and to save time, I'm going to use name principal. This means that I'm going to share the credentials with all the org users. This streamlines the setup. In production, you will want to use per user instead. Authentication provider. Let's select the one that we just created together. Start authentication flow on save is now selected, and I'm going to hit on save and go through the OAuth flow. So I click on save. I'm redirected to Office 365 where I must authenticate. Okay. Then I am back in Salesforce, and that's it. From there, I can go to my Files tab. In the External Files section, I can click on SharePoint via Azure, and I am now connected to my site. In this case, I use a name principle, so all the users will share the same credentials. In practice, you will want to use per user, which means that each user will have to authenticate the first time he clicks on SharePoint via Azure. So that's how you connect to Office 365 using this new method that we introduce in this winter release. Thanks a lot.